Hey everyone, Matthew Lockwood here in B1016. In this weekly lab video, we're going to be discussing taking G54 and G55 fixture offsets. So one of the questions I get a lot is, what is the difference between G54, G55, G56, G57? And I mean, really a lot of the times we do refer to it as just G54. So what's the difference between those? Realistically, there is absolutely no difference. G54, 55, 56, 57, these are all datum locations that we set using either an edge finder or a probe, and we're essentially telling the machine where our X location and where our Y location is that we want our datum to be. This datum is based off of the machine home position. So really all we're telling it is where the corner or circle or profile that we want to locate our entire CNC program from is being based off, and that position is being located from the machine home position. So the way that we determine where our corner location is very similar to what we did in the manual machining side. We can use an edge finder, and when we rotate this, we touch up against our workpiece until our edge finder comes to the center and then all of a sudden adjusts over. Then we adjust our 100th thou radius for the radius of our edge finder, or we can also use the probe. Now we use the probe for touching off our tool lengths in a previous video. It is the exact same process whether you're using the probe or the edge finder. The only difference is we have a different radius that we need to offset for whether we are using the probe or the edge finder. Personally, I like to use the edge finder, and the reason is because it allows a little more give. So if we move the wrong direction, this can kind of withstand that type of movement. Where if we move the wrong direction with the probe, a lot of times it ends up with us throwing the probe out and resulting in putting a new one. So I'm just going to use an edge finder, and you may be using the probe in your lab, but realistically, this video will cover the exact same process whether you're using the edge finder or the probe. One of the first steps that we want to take before we start doing anything inside the machine is we want to look at our drawing that we've been given and determine where our datum location is going to be coming from. So if I look at this drawing really quickly, I can see that my datum location is in the top left corner. This is important because chances are my program has been written with all my locations based off of that top left-hand corner. And obviously the corner that I'm going to want to touch off and set as my 0, 0 inside the machine will also be that top left corner. After I've determined which corner I want to set as my datum location, I'm going to go over to the tool crib and grab my correct size piece of material, as well as two parallels that are of equal size. Obviously, it's really important that these are of equal height because we want our part sitting flat on top. So I'm just going to go ahead now and load my workpiece into the milling machine. So you want to make sure that your part is nice and tight in the vise. We don't want it to move anywhere. And we want to take our rubber mallet, which should be on our tool cart, and we just want to smack the top of our part down. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll actually push my parallels and make sure they're not moving. This indicates that my workpiece is sitting very, very flush on top of my parallels. So now I have two of my three firm stop locations. I have my y-axis is being stopped by my fixed jaw, and my z-axis is being held in place by my parallels. Now we're going to load in my edge finder and begin touching my corner locations. I've just loaded my edge finder in spindle position number 7. That's going to be fine. I'm not going to leave my edge finder in here. We basically put our edge finder in the spindle. We use to take our X and our Y, and then we will remove it from the machine. Really, any vacant pocket will work fine. The next thing that we need to do is we have no programmed spindle speed. So even if I try turning my RPM on right now by pressing these buttons, nothing will happen because we don't have a set RPM. Now again, I will be honest with you, I have disabled a couple of the security devices on this machine in order to allow me to turn the spindle on with the doors open. When you come to class, these security measures will be put back into place, so you will actually have to have your front doors closed when you are touching off and setting your datum locations. I've strictly done this for an educational purpose and to make it easier for the filming process. So in order to fill in a programmed RPM, last week you would have seen it where I pressed my ISO button and I can type in my S1000 M03 and I can hit cycle start and it will turn my spindle on. So that's one way that we can do it. Another way is just like when we do our tool change, from our alphabet, we can just hit T and then whatever pocket we want to change to. We can do the same thing with our RPM, which is really convenient. So I can type in S, and I generally want to spin my edge finder at 1000 RPM. And so I'm just going to change this S value to 1000. And again, because this is a machine operation we want to perform, we don't want to press enter, we want to press cycle start. So you're going to see that I have S1000 and my spindle is slowly revolving. The reason it was taking that short little period of time is because it was switching from a low range to a high range within my spindle. Now you'll see that my actual spindle RPM is 1000. I can now begin the process of bringing my edge finder down and touching off on the corner of my workpiece. So I have my edge finder rotating in the spindle. I have my workpiece in my vise. Everything is tight. Now I'm going to move my edge finder close to the left-hand side of my workpiece. So again, I'm just going to use my pendant hand wheel to bring my spindle over and down. And one thing that's really nice, so that I like to do, is I really like to have my edge finder offsetting a lot so I can really see the movement. So I'm just going to bring this down nice and close and slowly start bringing my X over into position. Currently my hand wheel is an X and I'm in times 100, but I can see that now I've touched my workpiece and you can see how concentric my edge finder is spinning. So I'm going to adjust my hand wheel now to be in X times 10. So I'm going to be moving in 1 thou increments. So I'm slowly going to move 1 increment at a time, and I'm going to be paying attention to when my edge finder offsets. And there you have it. You can see that now my edge finder has kicked itself over. That means I am officially at the left-hand side of my workpiece. So the next thing I'm going to do is stop my spindle. So now that my edge finder has offset, I'm going to stop my spindle because it no longer needs to be rotating. And it's really convenient because I can just press that button right here on my NC controller. My S1000 has still been saved, so when I want to turn it on again, I can just use either my spindle clockwise or counterclockwise buttons, and it will reactivate my spindle in at 1000 RPM in whichever direction I choose. Another thing that we want to do right now is set our X value to 0. And I know a lot of people, and you may have learned in the manual machining side, that you want to set this to either positive or negative 100 thou, because technically the center of our spindle is 100 thou either to the left or to the right of our workpiece. I personally like to set this at 0 because I know I need to move 100 thou for the radius of my tool, but sometimes it can be confusing whether I'm in a negative position right now or a positive. So I find it's nicest to set this to 0, and then I can move my 100 thou, and if I go the wrong direction, I know I need to move 100 thou in the opposite way. In order to set my X to 0, it's really easy. I press my X button on the alphabet, it highlights my X value I am at right now as far as my relative number, and I input that this is my X 0. Now that I have it as 0, I want to enter this and have the machine change this. I do that by pressing enter, and the machine automatically asks, are you sure? It just wants to double check to make sure that we know what we are doing, and of course we do, so we're going to press enter again. And you will see that now my X value has become 0. The next thing I want to do is come back to my pendant hand wheel. I'm going to adjust my Z, and I'm going to move my edge finder up so it clears the workpiece. The next process I'm going to do is I'm going to move my x-axis over the 100th thou, which is the radius of my edge finder. The reason we are moving over this 100th thou is because we want the center of my spindle to be in line with the very edge of my workpiece. This here is my actual number I'm interested in. I've moved over my 100th thou, and if I want, I can actually look at my edge finder and see that my edge finder, the center of it is directly over my workpiece. So now I'm no longer interested in my big numbers. I've used them for everything I needed to. Basically, we touched off and we just used it as a measuring tool. We've moved over our 100th thou radius for our edge finder. Now we want to input where we are as a machine number. Where is this edge based off of our machine home position? We can do that really easily because we have our home X location. It is X 13.5379, and we want to input that as our fixture offset. In order to get to our fixture offset menu, I'm going to press 0 twice. Again, if you have a hard time remembering what this number is, this would be a great time to pull out your cell phone, take a quick photo of this number, because we're going to be transferring it onto our work offset menu. In order to get to our work offset menu screen, I want to press my 0 button, not just once, but twice. And that's going to now bring us up to all of my G54s, G55s, G56s. So in this scenario, I'm just going to set this as my G54X. So I'm going to come over, and again, I can't remember what that number is. If I want to exit out of this menu, I can hit escape. It is 13.5379. I'm going to come over to my G54X, 13.5379, and I hit enter. Okay, so this number has now been input as where my G54X location is. So anytime now I read a G54 X number, say I want to move to X 2 inches, my machine will automatically look at this 13.5379 and know it needs to move my X 2 inches beyond that machine number. So now that I have this correct and inputted into my fixture offset menu, I'm going to hit escape, come back to my home screen, and I'm going to carry on doing this exact same process with my y-axis. Now that I've finished inputting my x-axis G54 location, I'm going to continue the exact same process and do my y. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my spindle on in a clockwise direction by pressing this button here. And I'm going to begin moving my X and Y into position. So I'm just going to move my edge finder, somewhat close to the center of my y-axis face. And I really like to move my edge finder well beyond that edge. I don't want to bring my edge finder down on top of my workpiece because there's a chance I may hit something. And I'm just going to bring my edge finder down so I know I am below the surface of my workpiece. If it's easier, you can always move your edge finder with it not rotating, and once you get it into your starting position, then you can activate and rotate your spindle. So now, because it's going to be my y-axis, I'm in y times 100, and really slowly I'm just going to bring my edge finder up to the surface of my workpiece, and now I can see my edge finder is really concentric. I'm going to adjust to my times 10 And I'm gonna slowly start moving my edge finder until we see it break. So there it is there, it offsets. And when I say break, I don't mean like it physically goes crunch. I mean that it adjusts over. So now that I've touched off on my workpiece, I'm going to stop my spindle and I'm going to bring my Z axis up. It's really important that we take our time right now. We don't want to be adjusting my Y. My Y is set in a perfect location for where my edge finder adjusted. So just make sure before you move anything using your pen and hand wheel, you really double check, take the 5 seconds it takes, and ensure that these hand wheels or these toggles are in the correct position. So I'm in Z times 100. And I'm going to rotate my handle clockwise, which we know will bring my spindle up. And now I want to adjust my Y axis. I need to offset it for the radius of my edge finder. In order to do that, we're going to do the same process we did with our X axis, and that is by pressing my Y. You'll see it highlights my Y reference number. I want to set this to 0, and then I press enter twice. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my hand wheel back over and I'm going to adjust my Y axis. Now I know that I want to bring my tool closer towards me to bring the center of my spindle over top the edge of my part. So I know that's a negative movement. So I'm going to go spin this counterclockwise and go Y minus 100 thou. Now that I'm Y minus 100 thou, I can see, or I'm no longer interested in my reference numbers. I want to input where my current location is, my current machine location is, in regards to my machine home position. So really easy, it's this small number right here, minus 6.6182. And I'm going to press my 0 button twice because I want to input this number into that menu. So again, minus 6.6182. I press my 0 button twice, and my Y is minus 6.6182. I hit enter, and of course, I want to double check to make sure that what I have done is correct. I really don't want this, I don't want to input a bad number. So I'm going to hit escape, minus 6.6182, minus 6.6182. So now I have set my G54 X and Y location based off of my machine home position. So when I tell the machine, you need to wrap it to the G54 X0 Y0 location, my machine should move over that exact corner of my workpiece, and it's going to move to this location and this location from my machine home position. So now that we've set both of our X and our Y locations in our G54 offset menu, we're finished, correct? No, we still need to make sure that when the machine automatically reads our program, it goes to the correct position. So we want to verify that what we have done is correct. So in order to do that, I'm going to press escape and go to my happy home screen, or go back to my home screen. And the one thing I like to do is I'm just going to move my X and Y off to some random location. So I like to move so that I can physically watch my machine and my tool move into position over a set location. So in order to get the machine to move, we're going to be writing in a few simple lines of G code. The very first line of G code that we want to write is what fixture offset are we using, or which location do we want the machine to base our movements from? Well, we already know that we want that to be from our G54 location. So I'm going to come in order to write our manual individual command lines, we want to press our ISO button. And we want to tell the machine that we want to base all of our locations from our G54 fixture offset location. So I'm going to type in G54. Now on a FAG or NC controller, G54 has to be on its own command line. So we can't add this G code in with any other line of programming. If we do, we get an alarm. So G54, and I'm going to hit cycle start. And you're going to see that these numbers have now changed. These have changed because it's now telling us our location of our tool based on our G54 fixture offset location that we have input in our fixture offset menu. The next thing that we want to do is we want to move our tool directly above our datum corner location. So we have a couple different ways we can move. We can either wrap it or we can do a linear motion. In this case, we want to wrap it. So again, I'm going to press ISO to open up my manual dialog box. And to wrap it, I want to input a G00. And I also need to tell my machine how I'm basing my movements. Am I moving my tool from its current location, or am I going to base it from my G54? So obviously I want to base it from my G54 location, so that would be an absolute mode. So I'm going to press G90. So now I'm wrapping, I'm in absolute, and the next thing I want to do is I want to move to that X and Y location. So my corner location that I have just touched off from. So really easy, I'm just going to say move to X0 and move to Y0. And this is now my command line. Because my machine is going to be moving, I do want to adjust my feed rate down. Remember, this also controls my rapid feed rate. I don't want to go through all of this work of touching my tools off and then have my edge finder smash through my workpiece. So I'm just going to slow this down so that way, if anything doesn't look proper, I can either hit my E-stop to shut everything down, or I can press my feed hold to pause the movements. So I'm going to press cycle start, and my machine's going to move to location. If I look on my screen, you can see it's telling me that I'm at X0 and Y0. And if I bring my edge finder down, I can see that it is directly over top of the corner of my workpiece, which is exactly what I want. Now I verified, and I know that where I think my X and Y location is, and where the machine thinks my G54 X and Y location are the same. So now that we've accurately set our X and Y location, and we have a firm and solid datum location that our machine can base all of its movements off of, when we reference our G54, we have one more step, and that is to install a part stop. The reason that we want to install this part stop is because currently our fixed jaw is stopping our Y-axis. Our parallels are our stop for our Z-axis. We don't have a stop for our X-axis. So that means that if I loosened off my vise and removed my workpiece, I don't have a set part stop to push my workpiece up against. That means that the next time I load a part, my X could be off any which way. We didn't just spend all this time and energy so we couldn't create a repeatable process. And that's what this part stop is going to do, is it's going to create a solid locating surface for our X-axis. So it's really easy, same as what we use over on the manual side. It's just a T-slot that goes into your table. I'm going to slide it up against my workpiece, and I'm going to tighten it on. This way, when I put my next workpiece in and slide it up against, my X location will be exactly the same. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, which went over the process of touching off our X and our Y. Really, there's not actually a lot of extra steps in setting your datum on the CNC machine, as opposed to what we would have done on the manual machine. We're still using our edge finder, we're still adjusting over 100 thou. The only additional step we have is, rather than setting this to 0, we're just inputting where we are in regards to our machine home position. If at any point in time you have any questions or concerns, or maybe additional questions that have come up because of this video, feel free to send either myself or any one of your practical professors an email. My email, if you want to reach out to me, is m_lockwood@fanshawonline.ca. All right, best of luck, and I hope to see you in the lab. Take care.